All right, so wow, that's hard to. This is our 10th episode, so I thank you guys for joining. And as I mentioned, we do have a bunch of stuff. I've got more prepared for you than we can ever get done in an hour and a half. So let's get to it. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to. Who am I hearing? I'm gonna. Okay, I'm going to mute you all when we take a break, or again, if for those of you that have successfully made it into the chat room, you can go ahead and just type questions in. Except for Gloria, who can't find the chat. But we see Gloria. I can see her. In fact, she's right there on my right
Gloria,
monitor.
You can text me.
Diane said you can text her if you have questions, all right? Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to do just something, we're going to do something basic first. Whoops, that's zoomed in way far. Okay. And let's get out of full screen here. And what I wanted to do was show you the new stuff. And this is, I can't even remember the name of this arch. This is an arch in, wow, Capitol Reef National Park. Wow. It's a bit of a hike, but really cool payoff. But not in this light. And again, you look at the histogram, I did not want to blow out these details because they're really kind of important and everything else is dark. So editing it is not a big deal, but what I wanted to show you what's new is up here in the masking panel, and we have something new here. And if you see the first one now, it's called landscape. So let's click on that. And what landscape does is it analyzes the image and it takes a look to see what kind of elements are in it. And right below you can see it says, okay, I see sky, I see mountains, and I see vegetation. So it's basically doing a whole bunch of selections for you already. And you just click on the ones you want. I want all three of them. And you click create mask. And now if you look up in your masking panel, all three masks are sitting there waiting for you. Kind of cool. And even while you've got them, you still have all the other functionality of adding and subtracting. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to bring up the exposure for the sky a little bit. That actually looks pretty good without doing anything else. The mountains or the stone here, let's bring up the exposure on that. Certainly mostly the shadows. If anything, I may bring the highlights down a little bit to give us a little more room to open this up. And what else? I want to make them warmer, so let's add some yellow. Yep, that's more how I remember it. And tint, yeah, that's pretty much how I remember it as well. Maybe add a little more saturation. I'm going to make believe we had some Kodachrome in the camera. All right, now as we do this, the foreground is still kind of dark. So it doesn't have a foreground option, so we're going to have to use the brush. So I'll go back to the old-fashioned way of creating masks, get a big brush. For this one, I do have auto mask on, and I'm going to select just all this stuff here. Now, notice it's spilled over into the vegetation. I wonder if it will let me subtract from vegetation. Is vegetation a thing? Let's see. Let's see if I click on here. If I say, let's see, intersect. No, I guess it hasn't gotten that far. All right, no big deal. We'll come back to that. So let's open that up. Therefore, oh, that looks so much better. And as I remember walking up this trail here, it's a little too pink for me. So we got to take out some of that. So magenta, it needs some green. It's a little bit magenta. Yeah, that looks better. And maybe a little bluer as well. And a little more saturated. There was a little bit more color in there. Not bad. Now we have these bright parts. Let's deal with them separately. So I will just hit K with my brush to cut to the chase and just select these bright spots. Let's bring them down, bring the exposure down on those a little bit. And now you can see that our vegetation has gotten weird because, I don't know, for some reason it got adjusted already before we even did anything with it. So in this case, I'm actually going to bring the exposure down. And I will open the shadows, however. Now, the colors are looking kind of weird. Let's zoom in to 100% on this. Yeah, you can see they're just a little overly too bright. So I'm going to bring down the exposure a little more The shadows are good. I'll push up the highlights a smidge. And the green is a little off. So how do we fix that? Well, when the green's off, it usually means it needs a little blue. And we'll add some green. And then let's zoom out on that. And you know what? I'm still not loving that. That's not working for me. And this thing down here did not react at all. So again, these tools will help, but they're not perfect. So let's bring this one up. I don't even know what that is. Maybe it's just some rocks or stumps or something. And let's hit K again. And because I'm finding that this stuff's just kind of, yeah, it's just a little bit too weird. So in this case, I'm going to bring up the exposure, but bring the shadows back down. Let's see if that will work. We'll do it a little backwards. And yeah, just not loving it. I think this is one of those images where you're going to have to manually go in and do it. Let's try another one to see if we can make the whole idea of this new masking panel work a little better. Let's bring up our bird friend here. And again, for those of you that joined us right on time, we were playing around with this a little bit earlier. Again, if anybody knows what this is, I should know, but I don't remember. And what we did was, this is the image at 100%. And this was shot at 3200 ISO and 300 millimeters on a full frame equivalent. So what I did do was run it through the detail slider. And I increased the sharpening. I held down the Alt key to bring down the masking so it's only getting the edges. And then I clicked on the denoise button and ran it at 50%. And the result was that. And you can see the bird still looked good even in this one. But look at the background. You can see the grain off in the background where it's not focused and how much cleaner it is there. So that really does work pretty well. Actually, what is that? Is that a bug? See that right there? It doesn't look like... Can you see that? It's not on my screen, is it? Yeah, there's a little fly or something there. Does it offend me? No. But in a photograph, sorry to say, it is a distraction. So I'm sorry, little bug, but you have to go. So I'm just going to... I hit Q. Of course, the spot removal tool is Q. Yeah, right. Just drag over top of that and let it do its thing. Okay. So let's see what the new masking panel selects out of this, because it's going to select based on what it sees. I believe there are 7 different things it can try to find. So let's click on landscape again and see what it does. As far vegetation, that's it. That's all you came up with for this one. All right, that wasn't helpful. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to go over to another image that we're going to play with. Let's just take a look at it. Let's see what it does with this one. Click on landscape and see how many different features it is. Oh, there we go. Now we've got 6 different things, and I can't even see 6 things. Sky, obvious. Mountains. Yeah, well, those aren't mountains. Architecture. Yes, it got the lighthouse. For some reason, it also picked up part of this boat over there. Vegetation. All right, that makes sense. Water. Okay, we got that one. Natural ground, or what they call natural ground, actually should be called unnatural ground, because that will pick up, it'll pick up dirt paths, but it will also pick up roads, so paving. So as I look at this realistically, yes, sky we want, mountains no, architecture yes, vegetation yes, water obviously, and natural ground. So that quickly, it automatically gave us 5 masks. And I just click on create mask, and now up in the masking panel here, let me make it a little bigger, you can see here's all the masks. So there you have it. That is the new landscape masking panel option. Is it going to be a great time saver? Not sure, but it's kind of cool. All right, so back to our...
White ibis.
Oh, an ibis. Okay.
Ibis.
Okay, somebody... Blair. Okay. It's according to Merlin's bird ID, it's a white ibis. All right. So while we're here, let's go ahead and make this bird a little bit more exciting. As always, what can we do to make this a better image? and it's a little desaturated. So let's just go into some of the basics. So I'm going to hit enter to get out of our mask panel. And see, there's nothing has been done to this image. This is the image as it came out of the camera. It does need some more saturation right to start. So let's do that. Somebody typed in, oh, okay. Vibrance will do the greens and blues. So actually that brings some of the life back to the greens. I think the bird itself needs a little bit of life. We'll deal with that in a second. I am going to go look at the mask here. Is there anything else that we could pick up with this? No, the landscape thing was a fail. So actually, I'm going to try something here. Let's create a linear gradient because I want to get the background. I want to darken it up a little bit more. So we're going to do that with linear gradient. New mask, linear gradient. And again, for linear gradient, brush, and radial gradient, from this point on, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcuts. So K for the brush, M for linear gradient, and Shift M for radial gradient. So I'm just going to use the M, and I'm going to come down here, I think something about like that. And the first thing I'm going to do with this in place is click on the three dots here in the menu. And what we're going to do is, let's see, do I want to intersect it? No, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to make this a little bigger. I want to expand this. I want to subtract the bird. So let's hopefully see that the software sees the bird. Okay, kind of did a weird job in here as well. Again, the software is good. It's not perfect. So I'm going to add with the brush. And there's our brush. I want to get back into here. I'll get to the question in a sec. And this area this green got chosen as well. Rather than go to another brush, if I hold down the Alt key, notice the brush turns to a minus. So let's go ahead and click in here. Kind of hard to tell with my green. All right, so let's bring the exposure down. Oh, there we go. That did what I was after. And what is the question?
Why didn't you start with adaptive color from Jim?
So the question was, why didn't I start with adaptive color? Why didn't I? Would you believe the reason is because I didn't feel like it for this image? Could we have tried adaptive color? Yeah. In fact, hold that thought. We'll do that in a second. I just wanted to get that. Let's deal with the background first. Let's hit enter on that. And now let's do another new mask and let's get the subject. And that is a weird selection. So for some reason, Lightroom is really having fits with this image. So I'm going to delete that. I don't even need that. That's kind of worthless. I'm just going to get a brush. And actually what I'm after is in here. And for some reason, it's really having trouble picking up on what's what on this particular image. I don't know what's going on. Maybe the new upgrade has had some fails and some other things. Whoops. Because even when I have auto mask on, it's still seeing the background. So I'm going to have to hold down the Alt key and come back to the background to try to get a little more separation out of this bird. So let's bring the exposure up. The whole bird looks a little bit yellow to me. More yellow than it should be. So let's add some blue into it, which will make the whites look cleaner. That's good. I'm going to bring the highlights down a little and add a bunch of saturation just to get some more. Yeah, that makes the bill look a lot more interesting. And then the last thing I want to do with this is let's go ahead and take a look at the croppings. So I'm going to create a couple virtual copies. We'll do 1, 2, 3. Just Command apostrophe. And let's go to the first copy. And cropping wise, you guys know I'm a big fan of kind of the panoramic feel. And by cropping in, it allows me to make the critter itself much larger in the frame. So since it's looking off to the left, I'm going to crop in from the right. And I kind of like that. Let's try another. Let's hit crop again. Let's see what a vertical looks like. And again, it all depends on where you're thinking if you're going to actually make a print out of this. Not sharing online, but you're going to make a print. Where is it going to fit in the house? And what's going to make sense? I like that a lot as well. In fact, I'm going to make it even a little thinner. And the reason for that, again, is when you're dealing with a tall, thin vertical. In fact, let's go to a standard frame size for this one. Rather than custom in framing up here in the cropping area, I'm going to choose legal size. Let's see. Yeah, that was okay, so that was almost perfect. So a legal size print, which is a standard frame size, by the way. Yeah, that looks nice. And the beauty of a tall, thin image is that you are going to look at it from the bottom up. You're forcing the viewer to do that. And we haven't done any of our vignettes yet. Third one. What do you guys think? Panoramic, normal? Let's try something unusual. Because yes, you can try 8 by 10. You guys know how much I dislike 8 by 10s. Let me look in my cropping kit over here and see what choices I have. And let's try something odd. Let's try a 2-to-1 on this, which I kind of like. I'm going to come in a little bit more from the right. And do I mind the bird in the middle? Because there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like that. But in this case, let's take a look at it. Let's hit enter on that. And let's go ahead and do some vignettes. So I'll come down to effects and do my standard vignette. And let's look at it at full screen. And, you know, I really like that. There's just, even though the bird is almost dead center, the large bill coming off to the one side does put some asymmetry to it. And there's something interesting about the details of these plants and the sharpness on this edge and here and how it quickly falls off sharpness-wise. Actually, I like this image a lot as a 2-to-1. And while we're here, let's take a look at the other two. Here's our vertical. Yeah, it works in a smaller space, but man, the panoramic feeling in that other one really tells a story of the place this thing is in. It's more about the environment than just the bird, where that's what this is. And then back to our more normal one. This is kind of a hybrid of the two. This kind of works as well. Actually, I like this as well. I do find these kind of stick parts of the flower, the bush, whatever it is, a little bit of a distraction. I would probably go in and get rid of those if I was going to live with this crop. But when we go here, you have more of a sense that these things aren't just random sticks, but they're part of the continuing piece that goes all the way out to here. So it's less of a problem. Now, you might still not like this piece coming up here, and yeah, right, I get that. And this is one of those things that points out that sometimes your edit has to be different depending on your crop. So let's take a look. Let's just go to our, actually this might be a generative AI crop or removal. So I hit the generative AI and let's just drag over top of this. I'm going to come down to here and let's see what it does. And yeah, we'll hit remove. I can't remember if I told you this last time we had a class, but I was doing a workshop down in Florida, and I had a scene just like this, and I asked it to do a removal like that, and it put a monkey there. It was the weirdest, it was the funniest thing. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I don't know, 3 gets rid of it completely. You know, I think I do like the 3, getting rid of it. Okay, fine. Now let's look at it full screen. Yeah, I think, again, if I was going to do this, I would go into Photoshop for that removal and do something to make it look maybe a little sharper on the edge so that it looks like it was a break or something. But going back to, whose question was it, Di?
Jim.
Jim's question. All right, here's the original image. Actually, here's the original edit. I'm going to reset this. And Jim's question was, why did I not just use adaptive color for the profile? Let's take a look and see what adaptive color does for this particular image. And the answer is no. And actually, Jim, I knew this was going to happen, which is why I didn't use it. Whenever I choose images to share with you guys, I always give them a quick once over to see which direction to take them. And for some reason, adaptive color just failed on this. It tried to make it too light. I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm going to suspect that in adaptive color, it's looking at the tone of the entire image and kind of treating it as if it was a matrix metering in your camera, where it wants to average the entire thing out to a middle gray, because this has obviously gotten way too light. So again, the beauty of Lightroom is it didn't work, then undo it. Just put it back to where it started and you can start again. That's what I like about it. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, let's move along. We're going to go, we're going to move along. It's time for appetizers. What did I miss? Is something out of order? Oh, I mixed the order of the, we got new staff here tonight, so I'm sorry. They brought you your appetizers before the soup, so bear with me. We're going to do appetizers today first. Okay, this is a scene north of Durango, Colorado. Lovely mountain called Engineer Peak in the background there. But it needs some direction, some life. Like it could use something else here. What can we do to make this image work? And let's go ahead and see if adaptive color works here. Actually, not a terrible starting point. A little bright, but okay. Let's just do that and bring the highlights down. And let's open up the shadows a little more for now. They seem to be a little bit dark. Now, off in the distance here, this is a little bit hazy, and we have a great sky. So let's add some life into the image using the presence sliders. I'm going to add a bunch of texture. Not that, just take it easy on the clarity, and same thing with the dehaze. And I also see some things that, I think we're going to have to go into Photoshop with this. It seems like a fairly simple image, but compositionally, it's a little bit of a mess. Why is that? Because we have this big open area here. This thing's kind of cool. The mountain's small in the scene, so in essence, we need to make this old fencing more prominent in the image, and we have to do something for the mountains as well. Let's go ahead while we're here and see what the landscape masking system will do for us. Okay, sky, yeah, we got that. Mountains, it picked the entire image as mountains, and that is natural ground. So I hate to disappoint you about the new landscape mask options, but in this case, it's a fail again. The color on the foreground in this image is off, and I can't put a finger on it, so we're going to have to fix that. Let's just get out of the masking panel. We're going to be left to our own devices on this to make this image work. I'm not sure what the color problems are. Usually I'm pretty good at that. I can start with this area here. So let's get a brush. So I just hit the K key to give me my brush, and just going to pick all of this and add a little bit more life into the peak itself. So let's go ahead and start with some dehaze, because I think that's what it needs. Yep, that's what it needed. I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit as well. But also the color. This mountain up here is pretty red. So for some reason, the thing's a little bit greener than it should be. So let's bring this over to magenta and this over to yellow. And that's more what that mountain looks like. And then we have the foreground here to deal with. There's an interesting perspective thing going on. I think the entire image is slightly off. This tree seems to be slightly leaning to the right. So let's get the crop tool, and we're going to straighten that tree out. Yeah, that was a problem. So let's come up a little from the bottom. And yeah, that's fine. I'm still not thrilled with the composition. Now, I could do something like this. I could just cut to the chase and say, that's my image, make it a square. Let's go ahead and make it a square here. I'll hit 1:1. I could say that's the image, and kind of works. The shadows are way too dark. You got to open up those some more. Kind of works, but I don't love it. So let's undo that. I want to show you something kind of cool. Let's go down to the transform slider. And I want to do something to kind of almost be like we were changing our position. And I'm going to use the horizontal slider. and drag this thing over here like this. And then we're going to, we'll have to change the scale here. We're going to push it over to the left a little bit. And look what just happened. And then we have the scale here too. I'm going to bring this down until I can get my entire tree here. So let's do that as well. Let's bring the top of the tree in. And look what just happened to the image. Yes, obviously there's pieces missing, but look at how the composition has changed. This thing that was really big over here is now manageable. This wood stuff over here, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think it was a cattle ramp, actually. But can we work with this now? And now I think we have something to work with. Let's send this into Photoshop. So we'll go to Photo, Edit in Photoshop. And we'll fill in those areas. We'll let Photoshop do its magic. All right, so here's our image in Photoshop. And back off on the zoom a bit. I'm going to make a copy of the background. I'm going to use the magic wand, and I'm going to turn on contiguous because I don't want it to select everything at once. And I'll just click in this piece of the sky. Now, I usually show you something here because, so see, we have this interface between the transparent and the sky. Let's just go ahead and do it. Function Shift F5 is the keyboard shortcut for content aware fill. There it is. Hit OK. And let's see how good a job it does. That's pretty cool. Now, here's the problem, though. Let's zoom in on there and see that. That's a remnant of the transition. So we have to undo that. What I need to do, and I've shown you this before, is when you make a selection like this, anti-alias will sometimes get rid of it, but not always. Here's a safer way to do it. Go to Select, Modify, Expand. And generally I do 3 to 5 pixels. Let's do a 5 overlap. And that just makes the selection 5 pixels bigger. Now if we hit Function Shift F5 and hit OK, there's our new sky piece. And we can zoom in here. I'll deselect, and now we're looking at this at 869%, but you can see now it's a completely clean transition, so that's good. So let's do the same thing for these bottom areas. I select the bottom, select Modify, Expand. Again, the 5 pixels seem to work well. I'm not going to bother with the generative fill because 1, it takes longer. 2, it's limited to 1,000 pixels, which might be safe for this one. But 3, it's so much faster to just hit content aware for those things that it works at. And that worked beautifully. And you can zoom in just to double check that you don't have any repeating patterns. And I'm not seeing anything. And really should look at it at 100%. There's 100%. And that's perfect. There's really no reason to use generative fill on that. Excuse me. So again, I'm going to get this last little piece over on the right. And one more time. I wish there was well, you could make a keyboard shortcut of this. It'd be a lot of work. All right, Function Shift F5. Or you can go up to Fill Content Aware. And there we go. So that's pretty cool. We were able to take that and turn it into that. And now we've got an image that the composition is so much better. And we'll see it when we go back into bring it into Lightroom. Now for the problems. What are this color in the foreground's throwing me off. Let's do it what I think is the best way, and that's using a color balance adjustment layer. So again, I'm not sure what's wrong, but I'm just going to drag this over to kind of into here. I really don't need to see the generative. I don't know if we're going to do any generative fill tonight. I'll just push it to the side. Let's go ahead and just start dragging sliders left and right. No, definitely not red. Yeah, needs a little more cyan. All right, magenta, no. Green, yes. Yellow, no, needs some blue. It was a little too yellow. And again, we might do this and decide it works for everything except the wood. We'll just deal with the wood separately. Highlights, same thing. Actually, the highlights do need a little red. Magenta, no. No. Nope. Both of these look terrible, so leave that one alone. That means that balance is good. And it does need a little yellow here. And then lastly, shadows. Let's see how the shadows look. Red, green, red, green. This is, I hate to say it needs a little red. Magenta, green, magenta, green, magenta, green. I think green. The magenta, I think the magenta is the problem in this one. And then left and right, yeah, it needs some blue as well. Needing blue in the shadows is pretty commonplace. All right, let's turn this on and off and see where it works and where it doesn't. Definitely does a good job on the grass. I don't like what it's doing to the wood. It's taking some of the warmth out of it. And I don't like what it's doing back here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a mask. I'm going to completely fill this with black first. And to do that, I've got black in the foreground, white in the background here. And I'm just going to, with the mask selected, which you get the little border around it, Alt backspace will fill the mask with the foreground color, which is black right now. And then I'm going to get a brush, a nice big brush. And we've talked about this before. How do you get a big brush? You're never going to use the bracket keys again. No more brackets. Here's what you do. On a Mac, hold down Control-Alt. On a Windows machine, Control-Right-Click. And drag left and right. That makes your brush bigger and smaller. Up and down, and that changes the edge hardness. So I want kind of a big, fairly soft-edged brush. And I'm going to put white in the foreground. Hit X to put white. That was, notice I see that over here. That switches background, foreground. So we have white in the foreground now. And I want to paint pretty heavily. I think I'm on 80%. Oh, which I happen to be at. This is my opacity up here. And I'm just going to start, again, with the mask chosen. I'm going to just start painting over these areas. Make it a little smaller as I come in here, to bring in those color changes that we just made to this image. And yeah, to me, the grass is looking a lot better. I see some other areas I may want to change. Like this area here maybe should be a little warmer. However, as I look at it, I think it might be, that part might be best done in Lightroom. But let's turn this on and off now. And you can see just the grass. Yeah, the grass has got more life and the color is much better. Pretty good. Let's go here again. This time I'm going to do another color balance. Same thing, and this time I'm going to zoom in because I want to just see the wood. So let's just look and see what happens at the wood here, and because I want the wood to be warmer. I want to separate it out from the grass a little more, so a little bit warmer here. Actually, strangely enough, it does need a little blue. So highlights. And again, how do I decide what's the color, what looks right? It's somewhat subjective, but if you go extreme on either end, choose the one that looks less terrible. And again, I'm seeing this wood as warmer, so just watch it as you drag the slider back and forth. And just maybe the slightest movement is all it needs. And then yellow, yeah, a little warmth, and then shadows. I think looking at the shadows, I'm thinking they need to be warmer as well. A little bit of red, magenta green, little green, yellow, blue. Yellow, blue, yellow, blue. No, it needs a little blue. And again, let's turn this thing on and off. All right, the wood looks good, but now the rest of the image is messed up. So let's back off. And again, we're going to hit X to put black in the foreground. Alt backspace with our mask selected. And now let's get a brush. I'll put white in the foreground again. And notice as I just drag across this thing, how that warmth comes back into the wood. And that looks so much better. Just going to make the brush about the size, the width of the wood here. And I'm just going to drag up and down, and it just looks so much nicer with the warmth in it. And I think that's pretty good. So if I turn these both on and off, you can see these are subtle adjustments, but man, they make a big difference in getting the color where I want it, plus the perspective. Now there's some other things I think I want to play with just a little bit. But let's send this now back into Lightroom. And I'm just going to hit Command S to do that, to send it back into Lightroom, which is being hidden right now. You can see there it's saving it over there. It did it. So we tab over to Lightroom. And here comes our new image. I still think the shadows are a little too dark, a little too black. So let's actually bring the blacks up a little bit. So you can see them happening here just a little bit. And I still think this area might be a little too bright. So I'm going to get a big brush. I hit K here. And I'm going to select this area of the grass, because the other thing this thing could benefit from is a little bit of light painting. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick the areas that I think are a little too bright and bring them down a little bit. So let's bring those down. That's better. And I'm going to hit K again. A little bit smaller brush this time. And I want to get some of this grass. I want to make it a little darker, but a little more golden. Actually, this stuff over here as well. So let's add some yellow into that. Actually, adding the yellow brought it down what I think all it needs. And the mountain the mountain peak is still a little bit, maybe that's how the sun was hitting it, but oh yeah, it needed a little warmth too. All right. Cropping wise, well, I think I'm happy with this. Let's bring up the cropping tool, R. Does it need a little off the bottom? Maybe like that. Just that much. And then, of course, a vignette. And let's see where our journey has taken us. So I'm going to reset this so we can see where we started. So that's this is the raw file we started with. And I thought it was interesting. I thought that maybe something we could do with it. But it really, it would have been better if I had taken a couple of steps to the right, apparently. But look what we were able to do by taking that to there. Hard to believe it's even the same frame, the same shot. But there you go. You can do interesting things with the transformation tools in Lightroom. In this case, we actually used a horizontal transformation to bring the stuff in the right over to the left a bit. And it created a much nicer shot. Cool stuff. Any questions?
Nope.
All right.
You guys are too quiet.
Yeah, you guys are quiet tonight. All right, let's see. What did I mess up? Oh yeah. All right, we had to find some new wait staff. Yep, we're gonna go back to soup. All right. So let's see. Had I already saved the masks on this? Yes, we went through the new landscape mask thing. So let's take a look at the image before we do anything. What are the problems? Well, the sky's kind of boring. That's all right. There's people. Do I mind the people here? Yeah, maybe not. Actually, there's two people here I might keep, because I happen to know that these are two people on one of our workshops. These are the interlopers right here. Maybe we'll just get rid of them. Let's start with the lighthouse. So what is the lighthouse? Architecture. For some reason, it decided that the sails of the boat were part of the architecture. That has to go. So let's just click on subtract with a brush and come over here to get rid of that. Okay, so now we just have our lighthouse. Let's open up the shadows. That's looking better already. I'm going to bring the highlights down to protect the whites and bring up the exposure a little bit. And you know what it needs? The color. It needs, I think, a little warmth. Oh, yes. Look at that. Now it looks like the sun is shining. That makes it look like a cold winter day. By bringing over just here, just adding a little yellow to it makes it warmer. And let's boost the saturation as well. There's not much color in this thing except for the red up in whatever the light part of a lighthouse is called. The lamp house, I guess that is. And that looks great. Okay. The sky. I'm not a big fan of this sky. Let's go ahead and do something with it. I got a suspicion we're going to get rid of this sky. So let's add some blue to it. All right, that helps. We could see if maybe some dehaze will bring out the clouds a little more. Yeah, not really a lot of clouds here, but that's okay. Now we've got the water to deal with. The water's kind of an odd color. So let's click on the water. I'll admit, in this particular image, the landscape masking selection's automatically done. were kind of handy to have. So I'll give it that. So let's bring up the exposure a little bit. It's kind of a little too green for me considering how blue a day it is. So I'm going to bring over the blue slider just a little bit and maybe even add some magenta. Yeah, that's what it needed. Okay. This pier out here. Shadow's a little too dark, and I think it could be warmer as well. And the software picked that up as natural ground. So we click on that, and it came here and actually seems to have picked up the beach way out here. Actually, I'm okay with that for what we're going to do. I want to add a little warmth to it. So I'm going to add a little more yellow and open up the shadows. And actually, that's great. That looks great everywhere. Off in the distance, we've got the far side of the harbor. Let's go to vegetation. Let's add a little dehaze because it is off in the distance. Yes, it did look that way, but through the haze and with the reflections of the water, it's gone a little too blue. So let's add some warmth into that as well, and that looks better. All right, not terrible. Again, let me hit a virtual copy. And I'm going to reset this one. So far, what have we done? Let's go full screen on that. We are here. We took this to there. And that was all using those automatic masks and a couple of sliders. You could live with this. However, again, let's zoom in here. Let's see. Does that look familiar? Somebody familiar, Di?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I know who that is. All right, so these people have to go. Lightroom or Photoshop? Let's see if Lightroom can do this. So we'll go up to the generative remove. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Let's go to 200% and zoom in here. Yeah, I recognize that guy and that guy. They're one of our workshop. I don't think these people are, so I don't feel guilty about eliminating them. All right, so let's try that. This is a fairly simple ask because it's mostly water behind them and a little bit of rock. So I think we can get rid of the entire group. And looks like somebody left a camera bag on the ground, which is a terrible thing to do. That's, yes. So let's click on remove and see how good a job Lightroom does at getting rid of these people. And let's see. What did I do? You know what I did? I did it after the edits. Should have gotten rid of the people first. So what does that mean? Rather than back up, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do it in Photoshop because Photoshop doesn't care. Once you send this stuff into Photoshop, it's a bitmap. So let's do that. Let's take this one. Let's zoom out and send this one into Photoshop. Command E, because I got something else in mind that's bothering me in the composition. So Command J. Let's zoom in again on our group of people. Excuse me. Let's see if just content aware fill will do it because it does it so fast. Just again, let's use our function Shift F5. It did it, but it did some weird stuff for the water. So let's try generative fill. And again, with any of this stuff, you're better off doing it in smaller pieces. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but in general, it's going to do a better job with the least it has to actually be changing. And then we'll add these people as their own thing. Yeah, see how much better the water is back there? So 1, 2, 3. I like the water in 2, so that'll be the answer for that one. We'll click back on the layer and do the same thing for this grouping. And yes, I'm going to hold down the plus key and add to get rid of that little bag there and this one little foot. And let's try generative fill here. Click on generate. And by the way, if you guys are not familiar with this place, this is one of the lighthouses in Portland, Maine. It actually puts some guy like some monster crawling out of the water. That's weird. Let's try 2 and 3. Yeah, 3 was good. Wow. That was kind of creepy, actually. Yeah, it was kind of creepy. Okay, so we got rid of those people, and that's good. All right. Something else that's mildly driving me nuts. The boat's going the wrong way. Doesn't it look like the boat should be coming into the scene rather than leaving the scene? And is there really an easy way to isolate it as a subject? No, because there's all this other stuff. So we're going to cheat. I'm going to hit the M key, the marquee tool, and drag around the boat like that and hit copy. Oops, it can't copy because I'm on the wrong layer. Copy. Now, if I go up to File, New, it sees there's something on the clipboard, and here it is. I'm just going to call it Boat. And I'm going to hit OK. It makes something that's exactly the same size as the clipboard. And now if I hit Command or Control V to paste, there's the boat. The cool thing about this is now Photoshop should understand what the subject is, where it couldn't do that. And look, there's our boat. We got our subject. So all I'm going to do now is copy again, just Command C, and I'm going to leave that. Let's go back to here. I'm going to deselect this. And now I'm actually going to get rid of the boat. Let's try a content aware fill and see if that will get rid of it cleanly. Perfect. All right, but remember, I have the boat sitting on the clipboard. So I can just paste it in, Command V, and there's the boat. In kind of an odd place, but that's easy to fix. So I'm going to drag the boat down to here, and then go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Isn't that look better? Shouldn't the boat be coming to visit with us rather than going away? I think so. All right, so I'm going to hit Enter on that. And while I'm here, I'm going to create a new layer. And this layer is going to be an overlay layer because I want to be able to darken this up. In fact, I'm going to put it underneath the boat so I can paint right up against the boat. Let's go way in. There we go. I'm going to get a brush, smaller than that, and I'm going to paint it, 20%. So I hit 2, and look, when I do this, now I can kind of have, look at that. And again, we're looking at this at 415%, but that boat still looks pretty good. Now let's hit Command 0, and now we have a boat. And the beauty of putting this underneath the boat is it actually doesn't go onto the boat itself when I do that painting. All right, we're almost done. Let's take this entire thing and flatten it, but I want to keep the layers for the time. So I'm holding down the Alt key, and we're going to go to Merge Visible. And did it over there. So so here's our entire image, and we're going to replace the sky. I'm sorry, this sky needs replacing. So let's go to Edit Sky Replacement. And I did load some of my own skies in here, and I kind of cheated here. I picked one with an ocean already in it. It pays to make sure that the skies you're pasting in are from similar environments. If I click on here, you can see I have a bunch of skies in here. But this one is one of my favorite ocean skies, so I'm just going to hit OK. And I think that looks a lot better. I can go in and bring this down or resize it. But you know what? It seems to work. It seems to work right where we are. So let's just simply hit Command S to save this, to send it back into Lightroom, because yes, it does need cropping. Something my friend Rick Salmon taught me years ago was that he said that he had, what did he call it? OCD. Rick said that he was OCD, and for him it meant he had obsessive cropping disorder. And I agree with that, because anything that is competing or not contributing to the image really should go. So before we do that, let's do a vignette so that it will apply to all our crops. So I'm going to add a vignette here. And now I'm going to create, just 2. I'm going to create 2 virtual copies. Let's take a look at our first copy, and I'm just going to crop it to what I think it needs. What am I looking at? Well, the water, if you look at the water from the bottom to the far shore, this area is about the same size as the height of the lighthouse, and it's competing with the lighthouse a bit. Let's just bring it up a little bit to make it smaller and give the lighthouse more physical weight in the frame. Conversely, the same thing up here. Sky a little too much. I don't usually slavishly follow these things, but this is the golden ratio grid. Notice now that my lower line is right on the far shore, and I think that kind of works. Do we need that much on the left? Maybe not. Oh, all right, we're going to just go by the rules, which I don't usually do, but actually, yeah, let's go with that. All right. It's better. It's better than that. There's our original. Here's the crop. I still don't like it as well. I think this whole thing needs more motion. There's motion in here, and now with the boat coming into the scene. Yep, with the boat coming into the scene now, I want to create some visual emotion to the entire scene, and I think that's the answer. Yes, what's the question?
Unfortunately, the sun shadows in the sails are opposite the sun shadows on the lighthouse.
That was Stephen, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right. The question was that the shadows on the sails seem to be opposite of the lighthouse. Maybe. I'm going to use the argument that this was taken on another planet that had two suns, and we just watched Star Wars, so I was used to seeing all those two suns setting. Yes, you're technically correct. The light is coming from the wrong direction, but you know what? I can live with that. Could I go in and change that? It'd be a lot of work. What would make the sails actually do this? Because you don't really notice it until you zoom in closely. But, you know, there's kind of an optical illusion going on here too, because if these sails were convexing out towards you, that is where the shadows would be, even with the sun here. So I'm willing to suspend disbelief a little bit on that one. All right, so let's take a look and see what our journey has been on this image. Let's go full frame, full screen. Here's our raw file that we started with. And we did some basic edits. Now, this is what the landscape masking allowed us to quickly do. So, not too shabby. But then we brought it into Photoshop to flip around the boat. Then I felt it needed some crops. So we brought it back into Lightroom. And here's our first slavishly following the golden ratio grid. It's fine, but I don't think it has enough motion in it. I think it really needs some more visual motion in it, which is why I like this one so much better. Look at the difference between that and that. Because now in a shape like this, you're going to follow across left to right. And you've got this pier coming out. You've got the boat. Everything's heading towards the lighthouse. We've got the shadow over here, and just this little bit darker point of land over here is really kind of enough to keep you from leaving the image.
Questions and comments?
Questions, yes.
Blair asks, after dessert, can Joe do a 30-second review of Lightroom detail mask and
Absolutely.
how to use it?
Yes. So the question was, can I go over the detail, all the detail stuff that happens in that? Yes, we'll do that. And Robert monochrome. All right, Robert. So, okay, Robert, I'm going to do it with this one. I think this one could potentially work as a black and white. So I'm going to Command J this. Oops, wrong. I'm not in the develop module. Command J. What am I thinking? Command J, that's Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Command apostrophe. Okay, another virtual copy of it. Let's see. Let's see what a monochrome looks like. We can try it right in here and just go to black and white, which in this case, it's pretty boring, but we can adjust all of our colors while we're in here. Let's go down to the black and white panel, and you can mess with the sliders, or you can click on this thing, which allows you to click and drag in that particular color, and look what happened. That's the blues. So what happens when we make the blues a little darker? That's kind of good. Let's make the reds a little brighter. Actually, I can cut to the chase. I know that the top of the lighthouse. Yeah, look, see how this just opened up. The water. I know that's part of the blue. We might have to do that separately. I think the greens need to come up. Let's bring up the greens in our far shore. And I think I think overall the sky needs to be a little brighter. But we could, that's a regular basic thing. We can bring that up. We can add contrast, bring up the exposure a little bit, add some contrast, and maybe a little more clarity. And maybe a little darker vignette. And yeah, that's not terrible. What do you think? Do you like that? All right, Bob, Diane likes this. So there you go. I happen to know that Mr. Bennett has one of those Leica monochrome cameras, so he gets stuck with this stuff a lot. How are we doing? Holy cow, it's 8:30. I haven't even gotten to the main course yet. Huh. All right. What are we going to use for the main course? All right, I'm going to ask you to type in. Do you want to see an edit where we'll take this image and make it work much better? Or would you like to see a composite where we'll take this and combine them? What's it going to be? Type in the chat room. Composite or edit? Whoever wins. Nobody's typing. All right. Silver effects. Bob's still stuck on.
We got a bunch of.
We got
and a bunch of edits.
Oh, you guys were no help at all. It's actually the most. All right, fine. I'll do them fairly quickly because the answer was both. Everybody wanted both of them. All right, so this is. Oh, what's the name of this arch? Sand something. This is an arch.
Was it Sand Dune Arch?
Sand Dune Arch. Yes, thank you, Di. So I'm going to kind of match this color-wise a little bit to that one just by bringing down some of the highlights and adding some saturation. There we go. That gets it kind of a little close. All right. So obviously to do this, the answer is not going to be Lightroom. This is a little too orangey. So let's add a little green to it and a little blue. That's better. Okay. So I'm going to select the two of these two files that are so it's the arch and our little group there, and go up to Photo, Edit in, Open as layers in Photoshop. We're not going to do open in Photoshop. We want to open them as layers so they're both in the same file. All right. And I'm going to put the people on top. All right. So here's our group of people. Let's go to Select Subject. Since they're the only thing that's different than the surroundings, let's see how good a job Photoshop does, and that's pretty good. Can't complain about that. Do I want more of them, though? You know, there's shadows around them. I think I'm going to want to include that. So I'm going to get the lasso tool, hold down the Shift key so that I can add, and I'm going to get this whole thing around them because I think we can blend this in. All right, so you see what we just did. I'm going to copy that, just Command-C, hide it. That's what we just selected. And go back to our background and Command-V to paste them in. And there they are. Now, yeah, I'm going to move them down there. Before, you know what? I want a little more on the bottom of this image. So we need to use Photoshop's Generative Expand. We just need a little bit more sand down there. So let's click on Generative Expand and let it generate. And this is not a hard ask. It's just some sand. So we're going to go ahead and bring those in. And we do still have some color changes. But yeah, I think we can make this work. All right, 1, 2, 3, 1. One's better. Okay. So 1 is good. I'm going to cut to the chase and just flatten those 2 out. And let's bring these guys down here. And this color is off, obviously. So I'm going to select subject again. Let's see if it can pick them out again out of this, just out of this. Because I want the invert, that's good. So I don't want that, I want everything but that. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-I, which will select everything but them. And I want to do a color balance adjustment just on that. You know what? I'm making a mess of this. I'm going to back up. I'm just going to deselect that, and I'm just going to go back to my group here, and I'm just going to select the subject. Forget, we're going to do it another way. Let's just select the subject here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the shadows in. So let's just copy that, hide them here, paste them in, and we'll bring them down to the ground. Okay. Now I've got them just here. I'm going to do another mask layer or another overlay layer like we did before. Put it under our people. Go to overlay, get a brush, and I'm going to paint it about 20%. And I can paint right over top of them because, remember, it's on a layer below. And then the other thing I'm going to do is change the blending mode. Let's try it to luminosity. There we go. And I see that's a little strong, so we'll bring it back. I just want a little shadow, to cast a little shadow. All right, and one more thing. I'm not thrilled with the color balance of the background. So let's go to color balance on the background. Let's see, what does it need? Yeah, it's a little bit too red. That's good enough. All right. So there we go. There's our group. Yeah, I should do a little better job on the feet, but they're not terrible. And yeah, I actually was standing up in here when I took the picture of these people. And our best wishes and speeding on your journey. This gentleman right here is our good friend Mel, and Mel passed away last week. So onward. Okay. Okay, so that back to the edit. This one might work with our new friend, the landscape masking tool. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's see what it comes up with. Sky, yeah, I buy that. Mountains, sure. Architecture, lovely. Vegetation, no complaints. Natural ground. I don't like how it got natural ground and added the mountains, but yeah, that's not worth it. We'll just leave that one alone. And let's create our masks. Okay. So we'll do them in order while we're here. The sky, what's the problem with the sky? It needs some more blue. It's got some contrails in it too, which are our problem. But that's going to have to be a Photoshop thing. Lightroom could do some of that, but something like this right here, this big contrail, that's not a Lightroom job. We could try generative fill, and maybe we will. Architecture, we'll save that for the end. Let's go to vegetation. Let's bring that up. Let's open up the shadows. That's looking pretty good. That whole thing needs some more saturation. And this is at sunrise, so I expect it to be warm. Now, these trees off in the distance have gone a little too yellow, so we're going to need to go manual. So I've got the brush, just chose K for a brush, and I'm going to just click these guys. They're a little too yellow, so let's make them bluer and greener and make them a little darker. That's better. All right, mountains. What do the mountains need? They need some dehaze. So we'll add some dehaze. They're also, yeah, I know this is sunrise, but they're a little too yellow for my liking. Let's make that's better. Make them a little bluer. And then this ground here is gone a little bit too dark. So again, a brush. And let's just come in through there and open up the shadows and bring up the exposure a little. And then overall, I think the entire thing could use a little saturation. So hit enter on those, and let's just do an overall saturation. That's better. Now the barn itself, it's actually maybe a little too warm. So we have a mask for it. Let's go up to architecture, and look, there's the barn. Now it picked up a little bit of back here, so we're going to have to subtract with a brush. And let's get this little piece of mountain it picked up on. Get rid of it. And the same thing over there. Okay. I think it's gone a little too yellow. Strangely enough, I think it needs a little blue. Yep. That's what it needed. And then maybe a little more in the blacks. Let's bring the blacks down a little. Okay. All right. So again, virtual copy. Let's reset the first one. So far we've gone from here to here as it draws in. Not terrible, but compositionally we have a problem. The barn is too small. This tree is overwhelming the barn. This distraction of the light, I guess with another tree, there's another tree or there's a person standing next to me. One of the two is the problem. And then we have these contrails. Fine, let's see if Lightroom can get rid of the contrails. So let's go, this is going to have to be a generative one. So let's see if it can do it. I'm just going to drag across through the whole thing and let's see if Lightroom, and that's what it selected. So we have to add to that. So let's come down to here. All right, now let's click on remove and see if Lightroom can do this. I'm suspecting this is really going to have to be a Photoshop thing, but we'll find out together. You probably put monkeys up in the tree. Yeah, that was a complete fail. So no, that's not the answer. There are other issues too. So let's Command E this into Photoshop because I have an idea to make this a much better composition in Photoshop, because the other problem is this tree over here needs a little more room and there's too much over on the left. So I'm going to do a little generative expand on the right. Actually, yeah, let's use generative expand. It's this, we're not asking for a lot here. So let's use generative expand and just give a little bit more. The tree is a little bit too close to the edge. It could use a little more room. And I've been in this exact spot many times, so I know what's to the right of it. So I know what's going to look right when it does it. So let's see what it comes up with. Wrong. Pretty good. Nope. 2's the winner. 2 works. Okay, that works. On the other side, on the left. I don't usually crop in Photoshop, but let's just cut to the chase. Let me back off on the zoom a bit. Zoom tool, come on. Okay, let's back off on that. Let's hit the crop. I think the crop needs to come way in. I think probably, maybe even more. All right, we'll split the difference. We'll come right to the little peak of this mountain there. All right. Now, having this little area over here on the other side of the tree is good. Let's zoom in on the sky and see what we can do to get rid of this. So I'm going to flatten the image and see if we can use Photoshop's tools. And I think I can do it better with Content Aware Fill. Function Shift F5. Let's see how that looks. And that's pretty darn good. And let's do the same thing up here. Just going to select this whole thing, and then we're going to do another little trick. Function Shift F5. Good. So what's the problem? We've got a little bit of contrail cloud behind the branches here. Kind of looks like a cloud, but this one does not. Now, I could continue what we were doing, but here's another way we can do this. I'm going to use the stamp tool. Actually, no, first I'm going to select the sky. Let's select the sky first. All right, we got the sky selected. Now I'm going to use the stamp tool. And what I want to do, what's wrong with these things? Well, they're brighter than the stuff behind it. So I've got all this sky over here. Let's use the stamp tool. Change the mode to darken, because we want it to darken where we sample from. So I'm going to sample out here, which just fills it. And look what I can do. I can paint right over top of this stuff. Since we isolated out the sky already from the trees, it's gone. We can deselect there, and it's gone. So that was a clean answer. There's a little piece right here that I missed. So let's select the sky again. I don't like that little thing behind there. That was piece of the contrail. So there's our sky again. The stamp tool, make it a little smaller. And again, we're going to have it set for darken. I'm going to sample the sky up in here by holding down the Alt and clicking. And then I can just come over in here and get rid of that. Wonderbar. And again, this is at 400%, so that's fine. All right. You know, I think, I'm not sure if I'm done with the crop yet, but let's send this back into Lightroom. And we'll always save our final crops for there. I think I might want to take a little more off of this image. And I think I need to chop the top off of that tree a little bit too, because it's just so much of a distraction. So let's again, we'll do our vignette first. Let's do a vignette. And I'm going to create 1, 2, 3 virtual copies. Let's go to the first one and hit the R tool. And again, you guys know I'm really into this panoramic feel. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to come in from the left. I'm actually going to put the barn now on the left grid. And I think, you know what? I think that's a much stronger composition. Let's see how that looks. Kind of like that. All right. What else could we do here? Anybody have an idea? What do you think? What crop does this thing need? Let's just manually do it. I don't want to cut off the Grand Teton, the peak right there. I think that, do I not need the right-hand side of the image as much that we added? Let's try that. There's just too much sky up here. And again, by coming in a little closer, we can make the barn bigger. Yeah, kind of works. Don't like it, don't love it. And then one more. Let's go crazy. Let's do a 3-to-1. Why? Because 3-to-1 is a frame you can buy in.
Jim doesn't like the road in the lower right corner.
Jim doesn't like the road in the lower right-hand corner. I don't necessarily disagree with you. Although I don't mind it there. So let's take a look and see the 4 options. Let's look at it full screen. So let's go back. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the entire thing as a 3-to-1. 3-to-1's nice because it's a standard frame size in both Michaels and Hobby Lobby. I could live with this. Jim, does this work a little better for you? Not having so much of it's actually not a road, it's just a dirt path. Does that work better for you? I'm curious. Just type in if that works a little better. Because we took away better. Okay, we took some of it away. Actually, I really like this as a 3-to-1. I think this is pretty good. So, yeah, there's too much sky there. And by having this much sky, notice how the barn just got smaller. It's smaller in the frame. Come over here. We cropped in from the left. I like this as well. The tree on the right is still kind of powerful, but yeah, I could live with it. But I know that Jim doesn't like that. And Bob doesn't like the grass on the left. I'm assuming that you meant the previous one because we got rid of it here. Yes, this right here is a distraction. And that got rid of that problem. And that's just a minor variation on that. No, don't like it as well. That's when we cropped into the tree. It needs the space. It needs that space off to the right. So I think the 2 winners are that. And all right, I got to fix this or Bob's going to be sad. He's going to be griping about it. We can't have Bob be sad. So let's go ahead and bring down this grass. And I'm even going to take some saturation out of it. That might have been a little too much. Something like that. But I am going to take more color out of it. Okay. Better. Is that better, Bob? Does that work for you? Okay. So I love the 3-to-1. Too much sky. That works. That does not work. Look at the difference. Just having that extra little space of just to the right of the tree allows this tree to work. Because without the space, it actually becomes more massive and it really draws you away from the barn. By having that empty space to the right of it, it allows you to spend a little more time with the barn. So I think that's our answer. Alrighty. Wow. Let's see, 8:49. One more? Shall we do dessert? Let's do dessert.
And don't forget,
yes.
Somebody wanted you to show them something.
Oh, yes, before we left. Actually, we can do it on this image. That'll work. All right, first of all, I've got a question for you guys. I'm going to call them 1 and 2. This is 1. That's 2. Just obviously a second or so apart. Which composition do you like better?
2.
All right, so that's 2. That's 1. Diane says 2. What do you
No,
got?
I said 1.
Oh,
I got confused.
you like that one?
I like the one with his head up.
You like the straight up. I do too. And since no one's typing in, we're going with this one. Nope. Oh, I got the chat window here. 1. And this was 1. This was the one we chose for 1. Okay,
Robert
1.
says 12.
12. Of course he does. Okay.
Everybody says 1.
Everybody says 1. All right. I agree with you. Okay. So this is obviously underexposed. Let's take a look at the exposure. 1600 ISO. Histograms, yeah, it's way over to the right. Here's the however to this, though. I shot this planning on this being a silhouette. And if I start messing with the exposure and bring it up, it's not a silhouette anymore. So let's select the sky by itself. So let's go to sky. Let's just bring the sky up. It's going to bring up some of the bird. That's okay. And I'm going to add a little blue to it as well. Just add a little tinge to it. That's good. And now I'm going to duplicate and invert this mask using just that. I want this darker. I'm going to bring the exposure down. I'm going to take the highlights out of it. We're going to play with this because I'm also going to do it as a regular exposure. And I'm going to pull out saturation. I really want it to almost be a black and white. And let's go back to the sky. I'm curious about this. In fact, I'm going to create a new one because I might want to undo this. So here's our sky. I'm going to make it more blue. And I want more blue than this. So I'm going to click on the color box down below and pick more blue. There we go. That just puts a blue thing over the top of the entire image, or at least the selection we had. And now I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit. And yeah, I kind of like that. Obviously, it needs a crop. I think something probably about like that. And I could be happy with that. But let's create some copies because I have some other ideas for this thing. And while we're at it, oops, I actually copied with I got to reset these. Let's put these back because let's see if this will work as a regular image. So that's what we just did to it. And the question was about the detail panel. And this is an image that will work for it because this is fairly high ISO, 1600. And I want to make sure that it is clean. So let's first bring up the exposure of the entire thing. Let's bring that up and let's bring up the shadows. And look, the image is there. So who knew? I exposed this to look like a silhouette, but we were able to bring it all back at the same time. But since I underexposed it thinking silhouette, look at how noisy the bird is. Is that recoverable? I didn't care because I was planning on a silhouette. So let's take a look at the detail panel and see if we can fix this. See if we can bring it back. So I'm going to add a little bit of sharpening, which is going to make it worse. But I'm going to hold down the Alt key. And then I'm going to drag off to the right so I just get the edges of the bird. Just want a little bit of it. Now let's click on the denoise. Yep, another question. Does the branch in the middle left need to be there? Well, hold on. Okay, look at how good a job. Now that looked grainy because we're looking at it 200%, and this is now showing us at 300%. But watch when I let go of this, we see what Lightroom was able to do for this. So let's click on Enhance, and it'll create a new image. Let's see. I got to see what's the branch. Oh, I see the I see the branch that's making him crazy. Huh. Tayo, do I want to fix this for you? Or I just want to torture you for the rest of the evening by having that branch there. We'll try it both ways and let's see what works better. So this is generating a new file using the denoise. And when we look at this thing at 100%, I think it's probably going to be pretty good. So let's see what it comes up with. Oh, it's still doing its thing. Okay. All right, here's the new noise reduced one. And let's zoom in at 200% to see. And that's really pretty cool. And 200% isn't fair. Let's look at it at 100%, and it's good. All right, so where's the branch that's causing all this anguish? Here it is right here, I assume. Huh. Oh, I could remove it easily. The question is, do I want to remove it? I kind of like it, but all right, fine. Let's try it. We'll have a vote. I'm going to do a crop again because obviously the sky up top needs to come down. Actually, before I do that, though, let's make a couple of virtual copies because maybe it doesn't. All right, so on my first virtual copy, let's bring this down. And, you know, there's something to be said for making that the image. And let's select the sky.
I feel like now that branch works.
Oh, yeah, that was where I was going. Diane thinks the she thinks that branch now works. Let's add some blue into the sky. And actually, I had a lot of blue. I don't like that tone of blue. It needs more red. And let's click on our color box and add more blue. There we go. That's too much. Let's bring the saturation down. And make it a little blue. It's a little cyan for me. Something about in there. All right. It's almost become daylight now. So does that branch still bother you now with this crop is the question. Tayo, this is to you. What do you think? Yes or no? And let's create another one. I'm going to make a copy of this one, and let's do one and we'll remove the branch. So...
He says yes. I don't know if that means it works.
Yes, it works, or yes, it doesn't work. Yeah, yes.
Oh, that was Renee. Sorry.
No, it doesn't work.
He
Okay.
doesn't like it.
All right. All right. So let's get rid of it. And this is the kind of thing that just regular getting rid of.
Doesn't like it either.
Renee doesn't like it either. All right, well, let's see it without it. You might change your mind. If you don't change your mind, then when you have a picture with branch in it, you can take it out. I like it, but that's me. Okay, let's see if just... Oh, that was a fail. Oh, because again, I did it after all the edits. Back off. Hold on. Got to do it before we start all this editing stuff. You know what? Let's do a generative. Let's see. I think this one needs a generative remove. Fine, let's get rid of it. What the hell is that? It threw another bird in there. How weird is that? And now a fish. And now a stick. That is insane. All right, we're gonna. I think Lightroom's. Yeah, Diane likes the fish. Fine. We'll leave it and I'll just leave the little stick and get rid of that with the standard one. Okay, there it is. It's gone. Do you feel better? Let's do a crop.
Russ wants to know if the whole thing is too centered.
Is the whole thing too centered? Well, let's take a look at it full screen. I don't think so. The reason I don't think it's too centered is that on the right-hand side, you have this negative space. And because of that, it's creating some motion. If the bird was over to the left more, then it'd be too much space. If I put it over to the right, you'd lose that emptiness and it's looking this way. So I actually kind of think that this works. And Teo, you were right. All right. So I will never doubt you again. At least not tonight. Does the sky need a little bit of blue? What do you think? Let's try it and see. Let's just add a little. You know, I don't like the blue. I kind of like the neutral. In fact, I'm gonna take the color out of it. Just go pure. Yeah.
Steve wants a flying fish.
Steve wants a flying fish. Well, we all want things, Steve, that we can't have. Okay. So very different feel, and I'm gonna do the one more and turn it back to my silhouette And we'll end up looking at the 3. Let me go ahead and bring the sky up. Let's bring the exposure of the sky up. And let's do a crop on this. And you know what? I'm going to bypass all this branch talk, and I'm just going to crop into here. And, oh, interesting. I think that might work as well. And I'm going to pull all the saturation out of this. We're going to make this black and white. Nope, it needs more on the left. Guess what, Teo? We're getting the branch back on this one. Yeah. All right, so let's compare. Let's see what we've just done. We've got 3 here. And again, when you consider that we started, let's take our starting one as well. Let's go full screen. That was what we started with. I took this again thinking silhouette. Who knew that the software was going to be able to create this out of it? I mean, that's pretty impressive. And then just kind of with the pure white, with the branch gone. There's the branch. Yeah, I admit in this one the branch is a distraction. That looks better. On that one, oh God, I hate to admit it. It needs to go in that one too. No, it doesn't work. The branch needs to go. But you get it. We don't have to do it. We can say, all right, fine. You're right. The branch needs to go. In fact, I am curious. I need to send this into Photoshop because I want to see one thing. I'm going to create a copy of this. Let me just get rid of this thing. Photoshop will make it a lot easier. Won't be adding any flying fish or other birds. Okay. Let's see. Let me maybe make a black and white layer on this and see what happens. And let's. Nope, it's really not affecting. There's not enough color left in this thing to do anything for us. So, nope, it's not going to make any difference. But actually, I don't hate that. That's interesting. I think it needs to be pure white though. If we're going to do this, so we need to do a levels adjustment, and that'll show us the curves. And here's our white that's not quite white. If we want to make the background go to pure white, then we have to go here. And let's save that. I don't hate that. That's kind of interesting. All right, so let's send that back into Lightroom. Who knew we were going to end up with all this stuff in Lightroom? You know, I kind of like that. I think there's a little too much on the left. Just a little bit. I think about right there is better. Now, someone's going to be bothered by these sticks, and I don't disagree with you, but they're staying there. We're done. And I still had images I didn't get to edit. There's another one I want to show you. I'll show you. I'll save it for next time. I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm just going to show you what's going to end up happening. This image in Tybee Island outside of Savannah, contrails everywhere. Just a mess and distortions from the lens and all. And I tried getting rid of the contrails, and sometimes the answer is no. There's just too much. But I was able to take that and turn it into that. So we'll see if we can get to that. We'll do that next time around. So Diane says, why are we obsessed with vignettes? Good question. Who's that? Renee. All right, Renee. Why are we obsessed with vignettes? Let's add a vignette to this image. Oh, guess what? I already did. All my images get vignettes. Why? They create a subliminal block to keep you from leaving the image. So let's turn the vignette off for a second just by clicking on the eyeball and watch the image. Doesn't look like there's a vignette, does there? But look when we turn it off. So see their vignette? It's subliminal. You can't even really tell it's there, but what's happening is it's just slightly darker. Your brain can see it. It's slightly darker than the area inside. And what happens is as you start leaving the image and hitting the edge, I don't know what's going on in our brains, but it stops you from leaving and kind of encourages you to hang around a little bit longer. Where when you have this, it's almost because you're going off the image and it's lighter out here and maybe in your matte, it's kind of encouraging you to leave. Just having this little bit of darkness is the purpose of the vignette, because it subliminally keeps you in the image. I will see half of you guys that I'm looking at right now. I'll see you at the beginning of next week in Italy. The rest of you, be well, be in touch soon, and thanks for joining me. Good night, everyone.